This is going to be a little heady. I'm going to start with some what's called Venn diagrams. Who's familiar? Don't feel bad if you're not familiar with it, because if you're not a mathematician, you won't be. But who's familiar with Venn diagrams? Okay. Venn diagrams, you've seen them. Even if you say you're not familiar, when I show you, see them. They're two circles, and they overlap. And where they intersect or they overlap is called the union. And those are what those two different sets of things have in common. They're phenomenal. Just for your edification, they were named after a British logician called John. Guess what his last name is? Venn. Venn. Diagram, right. Do you think he was smart? Do you think John Venn was smart? He wrote about them in a paper called On the Diagrammatic and Mechanical Representation of Propositions and Reasonings in the Philosophical Magazine and Journal of Science in 1880. Yes, he was way smarter than you. Allow me to give you an example. Let's go to the first example of the Venn diagram, okay? So here we have set A, which represents all living creatures that are biped or two legs, two-legged, like you. You would be in set A. Set B are all creatures, all living creatures that can fly. Now let's move to the second slide. People here for the first time go, what the heck is going on? I want to hear the parable of the sower. You've heard that a million times. Come on. So here we have living creatures that have two legs and can fly in both sets. Okay? Do you see that? The overlap, where the circles overlap or they intersect, you see that upside down U? That's called the union in math. In other words, where the circles intersect or overlap would only contain those members of both set A, two-legged creatures, and set B, flying creatures. You follow so far? You sure? Some of you were lost with the opening prayer, right? Okay, catch up. Let's look at side 3. This will help you out more. Set A, human beings are two-legged, right? But they can't fly, right? I don't care how many times you sing that song, I believe I can fly. You can't. Okay? They're two-legged, but they cannot fly. Therefore, they're in set A. Mosquitoes have 6 legs, and they fly, so they're found in set B. Parrots are two-legged, and they fly. Therefore, they're found in the area where set A and set B intersect. So far, so good? You sure? I hope so, because this is really simple and straightforward. Now, let me get to the point, because this is not the point. I want to take a look at a Venn diagram of Judaism and Christianity and see where they intersect. They don't. But why? Why don't they intersect? Most today would say that there is no real union. Now you go, oh, I know where they intersect. You didn't know a few years ago. You would have drew, go back, you would have drawn this Venn diagram. Right? Come on, be honest, stop it. Please? You would have drew this. And most of the Christian world would draw this, because they feel there's two separate entities. Judaism has nothing to do with Christianity, and Christianity has nothing to do with Judaism. That's what I believed. I was a hardcore Orthodox Jew. That's what I would have believed, right? So I don't blame you for believing it on the other side of the thing. But let's look at slide 5. That's the next one. There, I think there is an intersect. Just for instance, you ready? The story of creation in the book of Genesis is in union, right? Jews believe in the story of creation. It's in the Hebrew Bible. Of course they do. I think most Christians do, right? Okay, so that's in union. Also in union is the temptation of man, the fall of man, the widespread sin, and the universal flood. There's union. Now, you should have known that as a Christian, right? But somehow you didn't. Nobody taught it to you. 2, I see another union. How about this? The patriarchs. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's in union. Who's the Christian? Who's the God of the Christians? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No? The God of the Jews is who? Union. Union. 3, the 10 commandments. Well, 9 anyway. But the 9 commandments. They're in union. You could laugh. You're allowed to laugh at that. You're in a Messianic synagogue. What about the 5 theocratic covenants? There's only 5 theocratic. That means God's contracts with man. Is the Abrahamic covenant in union? You ask the average Christian, what's the Abrahamic covenant? They won't even know. And I'm not belittling them, but they just don't know, which is crazy. It's the most important covenant God made with man. The most important. No, Rabbi, you're wrong. Who said that? You'll say the new covenant is. The new covenant is most essential. You can't keep a covenant unless it's first made. The glorious turning point for the human kingdom was when God announced, I'm going to save the world, and it's going to be unconditional. You're not going to have any part in it. It's all going to be me. So the Abrahamic covenant is in union. Is the Mosaic covenant in union? Yeah. Is the Israeli covenant in union? Yeah. The Davidic covenant? There'll always be a king. Yeah. And the new covenant? Union. That's a lot of union. You guys had a different Venn diagram than I had. What about the book of Psalms? Wow. What about the book of Proverbs? Who did this to you? Now you'll say, well, my pastor never taught it. So, you had a Bible. Don't blame your pastor. Your pastor did the best he could. He didn't learn it in seminary. What about the promises that God made to Israel? He made them to Israel. When you say no weapon formed against you can prosper, you can't claim that unless you're grafted, sweet pea. You can rant and rave that promise all day long, but you can't get the promises if you're not going to take the responsibilities. So out you go. What about all the Old Testament prophecies, especially the more than 300 messianic prophecies that point us to Yeshua? There's a lot of union. Slide 6. Don't clap, I only have 90 more Venn diagrams. Imagine that. Like if I was like, slide 84, somebody would take me out. I know it. No, I only have 2 more. Okay, so in Yeshua, we should have had it, at the very least, Judeo-Christianity. Forget the most. I'm not even asking for the most. I'll just take the least. We should have Judeo-Christianity. And this is the sick thing. Professors, brilliant professors, like IQs of like 165, on Ivy League campuses like Princeton and Yale and Harvard, schools you can't even get into unless you know somebody. These schools have religion courses, and they're taught by geniuses, and they are not born again, but they know it's Judeo-Christianity, and the Christian is born again, and they have no clue to Judeo-Christianity. How about that? How about that? These guys wouldn't know Yeshua if they fell over him, but they know the faith is Judeo-Christian. And people that are full of the Spirit, right? Tongue talking, blood bought, hallelujah. You have no idea your Jewish root. Satan's good at what he does. And if you think you're going to outsmart him, you've been outsmarted. He is really good, so you better know the truth, because if you don't know the truth, you're not going to recognize the counterfeit. The enemy, though, had other plans when this happened. When Yeshua walked on the scene, he freaked out because the wall came down. The enemy loves to build walls. We're called to build bridges. God says the 2 shall be 1. Satan says the 1 shall be 2. God unifies, Satan divides. It's the antithesis, right? Okay. Everything's making sense pretty good so far? Okay, even if some of you first-timers, you don't hate me as much, don't worry about me. Don't be like, oh, he's from New York, he's got a big mouth. Well, somebody's got to evangelize while you sit on your hands and do nothing. What's that? And she said, that's 2 hours of sleep. You got to see me evangelize when I'm on a good 6, which is almost impossible. People go, yeah, I'm a little tired. I only got 8 hours. I'm like, you should be ashamed of yourself. Napoleon, the great men never slept. They thought it was a waste of time. 2 hours, max. You guys need 9, and then you wake up tired, and then you have to have massive caffeine, and then you need another pick-me-up at 3? What is wrong with you?
Why are you telling everybody my business?
Last slide, 7. The Bible tells us that Yeshua broke down the middle wall, right? Where's that? That's not Old Testament. That's Ephesians. Ephesians is always, the whole letter is at the body of Messiah, the body of Messiah. It's all about unity. Unity in families, unity in the body of Messiah, unity between God and man, unity between Yeshua and God. It's all unity. The letter to Colossians is all about the head. It's all about Yeshua. The letter to Ephesians is all about the body. Okay? And in this letter, he talks about the middle wall. He's making a symbolic reference. There was a wall in the temple, and it separated the Jew from the Gentile. There was a court of Gentiles. They couldn't go into the Jewish court. And the Jewish court, the Jewish people never go into the heathen dog court. They were separated. So when Yeshua came on the scene, he broke down the middle wall, not literally, but spiritually and symbolically. He broke down that wall. What does Satan do? What do you think, if you were Satan, what would you do if Yeshua came, your arch enemy, and broke down the wall? What would you do? Good. Build it back up. And how does he build it back up? Brick by brick. And when did he start? 1900 years ago. As soon as Yeshua split and the apostles died, he started building the wall. And he's been building it ever since. And the wall is huge. And how does he build it, my friends? I'll tell you how he builds it. He says, last slide. Is there a last slide with the Torah? No? We don't have that one? No! How dare you? It has to be a Venn diagram. Okay. Go back to the other one. Okay. I'll tell you how he does it. He puts the Torah in with Judaism. Okay? He puts the Torah in with Judaism, and he puts Yeshua with Christianity. He tells the Christians, the law's been nailed to the cross. That Torah is bad. It has a bad connotation. When you guys heard law or Jew or Pharisee in church, what did you think? Negative, bad. That's bad stuff. We don't want any of that, right? So that's what he did. He said, you Jews obey the Torah. You Christians, just obey what you want to obey. Figure it out. Try to be good. Serve in the church. Show up Sunday. If you're really good, show up Sunday night too. And if you're really good, you'll show up Wednesday. That's what we were told, right? I had nothing to do with Yeshua. That's what I was told. And you had nothing to do with the Torah. Come on. Come on. Are we going to be real or are we going to mess around? Then what else does he do? He says, brick. He says, okay, you Jews, Saturday, brick. You Gentiles, Sunday. Your day of worship is Sunday. You hear me? Why? Because Constantine said so. He passed a law. It was at a council of Nicaea. He passed the law. They weren't doing it in the first century. I got news for you. By 90 AD, no Jewish bishops were invited to the meetings. See, Satan doesn't just build a wall overnight. It's not the Berlin Wall. He builds it brick by brick. You might say, well, in high school, I was 160, and now I'm 260. You didn't gain that overnight. That was an ounce at a time. Satan doesn't build this wall overnight. It would be too drastic. They'd be like, what's that wall doing here? That's what happened in Berlin. What's that wall doing here? He's a deceiver. In order for him to deceive, he's just got to put a brick here and a brick there. So, Torah, you Jews. Torah, you Gentiles. Jesus. I mean, Jesus paid it all. He was obedient to the Torah, so you don't have to be. See, he didn't lie, but you can. Of course not. But it's almost like that's what they're saying, right? And then what did he do? You Jews, you got the Levitical feasts. You got Sukkot, and you've got first fruits. You Gentiles, Christmas and Easter. Come on, keep putting the bricks. You Jews, you got to eat certain stuff. You Gentiles, all foods are kosher. And before you know it, we have total separation. This is what we have. The enemy was not only able to de-Judaize Yeshua, which is incredible. It's like de-Judaizing me. It's not going to happen. Okay? It's like trying to de-black a black person. That's who they are. This is who I am. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. But he was able to de-Judaize the entire faith. The entire faith is de-Judaized. There's nothing Jewish in it except for negative connotation when we speak about anything Jewish. He's good. I got to give it to him. I really do. He's good at what he does, man. So now Judaism and Christianity is seen as two totally different religions. Well, at the end of my little encounter I had on the Transfiguration Mountain, I doubt we're going to go there because it's too difficult to get up with that many people. And I got a better view of Armageddon from the Valley of Megiddo and Harmageddo from the mountain. We have a much better view of Armageddon. Don't worry. But when I had my encounter up there and I met the Lord in a vision and I went into a trance, he said trance, he said trance, that's New Age, he really didn't see Yeshua, Relax, Mr. and Mrs. Christian. Guess what? Peter went into a trance in Acts 10, Paul went into a trance in Acts 22, How uptight can you be? A trance is the word ecstasis. You get thrown off from your mind. And you're hearing things and seeing things that you think you're hearing with your physical ears and seeing with your physical eyes, but it's a vision. It's a vision that God gives you. So when I met the Lord in that vision and I gave my life to him, I asked a question at the end of it, and if you read the book, you'll know. But I believe most, if not every Jew, if this audience was all Jewish, they'd be like, yeah, I get it. My question was this, quote, as I was leaving, I just got one question. Do I have to stop being Jewish? Now, why would I say that? Because if I believe in Jesus now, I'm in this circle, right? I can't bring any of that circle in this circle. They're two separate. And if I stay in this circle, if I stay in the Judaism circle, I can't believe in Jesus. I'm in a quandary. But only a Jew can understand why I asked that, but I'm trying to explain it to you. I want you to get your Jew on. So you have to understand that Judaism is not just a religion. The three great religions are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Judaism is a nationality as well as a religion. When I would talk to people anywhere and they would talk about their ethnicity, not their nationality. By the way, if you were born here, you're American. You can hold on to your little roots, but guess what? By definition, your nationality is American. Ain't that a slap in the face? If you want to be German, it's easy. Go back to Germany. My family came over here in 1905 on the Philadelphia. Mars Hershberg, my grandfather. All his brothers and sisters died in the Holocaust. My mother's family came over at the same time. All her family died in the Holocaust. They stayed, they died. They're from Austria and Germany. Every Jew. History. But they came here for a better life. And they didn't walk around going, I'm a German American. You're American! Now, your ethnicity is not your nationality, even though people use them interchangeably. So when people would talk about their ethnicity, ethnos, and we'd be hanging out and somebody would go, I'm Italian. Now, that's your ethnicity. You might be American by nationality, but you might be Italian by ethnicity. You understand? Or somebody would go, I'm Spanish. I grew up with a lot of Spanish people. When they look at me, they go, what are you? I go, Jewish. Isn't that weird? I didn't even know why I was saying that, but I would say it every time. Every time. Oh, I'm Greek. I'm Jewish. I'm Hispanic. I'm Jewish. My family's from Nigeria. I'm Jewish. I'm trying to let you understand why I would invariably say Jewish. Let me explain. No event in the last 2,000 years of Jewish history has rocked the faith of so many Jews as the Holocaust. Because of it, because of the Holocaust, more than a few Jews have concluded that the price Jews have to pay for being Jewish, the gas chambers, was too high. By the way, that's how they killed all the Jews, and they used Zyklon B gas, and Zyklon B gas cost 1 penny to kill a Jew. And the saying in the Holocaust was, a Jew's life isn't worth a cent. There were Holocaust survivors who I've met who baptized their children as Christians. Why do you think they did that? They didn't want to risk it happening again. They tried to hide the knowledge of their Jewish background. Bernadette's mother was Jewish, but she was raised Christian. Obviously, her mother didn't tell her. But her last name, her maiden name is Hecht. Hecht is a 1,000% Jewish name. The biggest sewing machine company in New York City in the garment city was called Heck Sewing Machines. 100%. It's like as Jewish as Goldberg or Hershberg. But they hid it from her. Other Jews have concluded that a God who would allow a Holocaust to happen either does not exist or is not worthy of being obeyed. Now some of you go, that's a little harsh. You go through a Holocaust. See how you do. There's nothing like it in history, guys. I got news for you. Nothing. Nothing in that short time span, killing 6 million people. If you do the math, it's unbelievable. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of people being killed every hour. Jewish philosopher and rabbi Emil Ludwig Falkenhayn. Brilliant man. He notes that Jews who stop being Jewish as a result of the Holocaust are carrying on Hitler's mission. I'll explain. The Nazi dream was to rid the world of Jews and Judaism. Hitler didn't hate Jews. He hated the God of the Jews. And he thought if he can eradicate Jews and Judaism, he can eradicate God. That was his real mission. Because who was Hitler? He was a precursor to the Antichrist. He lived in the spirit of the Antichrist. He was anointed with the spirit of the Antichrist. So, the Nazis want to rid the world of Jews and Judaism. If Jews choose to assimilate, they just change their name to protect themselves. They are fulfilling Hitler's dream. In response to the Holocaust, Falkenhayn has formulated what he calls the 614th commandment. Why is it called the 614th commandment? How many commandments are there in the Torah? 613. This is the 614th. Thou shalt not grant posthumous victories. He's intelligent. Posthumous means after death. In other words, even if one has doubts and uncertainties about Judaism, even if one feels angry at God, even if one fears anti-Semitism might someday triumph again, one must live as a Jew. To do otherwise would be to allow anti-Semites to win. In Israel, there are secular humanists who don't believe in God but will maintain their Judaism and still have some belief. They'll still read the Psalms, they'll still read parts of the Hebrew Bible, but they will not give up being Jewish. Never, no how, no way. So now my main group of Gentile audience can understand, and when I say Gentile, it's not derogatory. It's like saying white, black, it's a fact of the nations, non-biologically Jewish. We're no big deal. 99.9% of the world's population is Gentile. Jews make up a speck of people. Nothing. But now you can better understand, hopefully, that's what I'm trying to help you understand, me, that this former Orthodox Jew who met Yeshua on the Transfiguration Mount asked the question, do I have to stop being Jewish? You understand now? I don't want to give Hitler the victory, and I don't want my father to be turning in his grave. But I was willing to for Yeshua. In that moment, that's why I asked. The answer I heard was incredibly perplexing to me, to say the least. I heard an absolute audible voice say, I didn't. I didn't. And I shelved it because at the time I didn't have a clue what that meant. Like, I didn't, whatever. I came home, I wore a big cross, I preached the gospel to anything that breathed, even some things that weren't breathing. I believed if I preached the gospel to the cadaver would rise, accept the Lord, and then drop dead. I had crazy, sick, nutty faith. Bernadette used to say, you're preaching the gospel to farm animals? They don't need salvation. But I was kind of out of my mind when I met him. I knew nothing about Jesus except for the fact that he wasn't on our team, meaning Jewish background. When I arrived back to New York City from Israel, I began reading, or really devouring, the New Testament. Devouring. 3, 4, 5 hours a day was nothing for me. I'm not boasting. I just hated to read. I couldn't read. I was ADD, but this Bible came to life. And I couldn't put it down. Bernadette, reading the same way. We were just reading, delving. No teachers, no mentors. We had no books of definition, no lexicons, no commentaries. It was me, her, the book, and the Holy Spirit. I never thought I would see what I saw when I got into the New Testament. As a Jew, the New Testament was taboo. Why would we read it? It's like saying, why didn't you read the Quran? Why would I read the Quran? I read bits and pieces to talk to Muslims. I got to know what they're reading. I read bits and pieces of the New World Translation. I read the Book of Mormon a little bit just to know what they believe. But why would I read that? Why would I read the New Testament? I'm a Jew. But now I'm a Christian. I came home a Christian, so I got to read the New Testament, right? Make sense? Not only did I see that Jesus was 100% biologically Jewish, but as I was reading the Gospels, I saw that he was a devout, practicing, Torah-observant Jew. I bet you didn't see him like that, huh? But he was. That's what he was. He didn't obey the Torah so we didn't have to. He obeyed the Torah because he was a law-abiding citizen in the kingdom of heaven. When he became a man, he was obligated. And guess what? If he didn't, then his blood would be tainted. How is Jesus seen by the Jewish people? I know there's a little cerebral, but you need to know. You're part of a Messianic community. You need to know this stuff. Honest. First of all, sometimes you don't have to just go and have rah, 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 sis, boom, bah. There'll be no tears, no crying, no pain. Sometimes you have to have some knowledge. Because you're out there talking to Jewish people, and if you don't know this, they're just going to think, they don't know what they're talking about. How is Jesus seen by the Jewish people? First of all, there is no consensus among individual Jewish people. People ask me the whole time, what do the Jews believe? Ask 2 Jews, get 3 opinions. I don't know. What kind of question is that to ask me? That's like asking me how much pastrami did they eat in Poland in 1957. I don't know. Every Gentile has a different opinion about God. Every Gentile has a different theology and a different persuasion about what they think is important in the kingdom. But in Rabbi Teluskin's work, Jewish Literacy, and I really recommend you read it, this is the quote from the Orthodox community. You ready? This is astounding. I'm going to quote. Jesus is seen, Jewish scholars, Jesus is seen as the New Testament depicts him. A law-abiding and highly nationalistic Jew, and a man with strong ethical concerns. Like many of Judaism's great rabbis, the Jewish scholars know him as a Jewish rabbi. How come the Christians don't? That's what he was. Like many of Judaism's great rabbis, he saw love of neighbor as religion's central demand. He did. Though many Christians are under the impression that he opposed Judaism's emphasis on the law, in actuality, he criticized anyone who advocated dropping it. So he wasn't even just neutral about it. He's not like, I'll do it, don't you worry. He's like, if you don't do it, it's not good. And then they quote him. They quote him out of the New Testament. This is crazy. Do not imagine that I have come to abolish the law or the Torah or the prophets, he declared to his early disciples. These are Orthodox scholars in Judaism saying this. I tell you solemnly, till heaven and earth disappear, not one dot, not one little stroke shall disappear from the law until its purpose is achieved. Therefore, the man who infringes even the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be considered least in the kingdom. Wow, they're quoting out of the Gospels. You might not think this is amazing. It's amazing. This helps the Venn diagram come together. What are they quoting from? They're quoting from his only sermon. Matthew what? It's his only sermon. No, Rabbi, he did a lot of sermons. No, he didn't. A parable is not a sermon. A parable is a quick drive-by, just to make a point. It's figurative, it's symbolic. It's a heavenly lesson told on earth. It's a lesson about heaven told on earth. That's what a parable is. A sermon is different. A sermon has to build. His sermon was one and only, 5, 6, and 7 in Matthew. That's it. And in Matthew 5, 17, 19, this is what it says. Don't think that, now this is him speaking. This isn't me. This isn't a Jewish voice. This isn't a Messianic Jew. It's him. Don't think that I've come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I've come not to abolish, but to complete. Yes, indeed, I tell you that until heaven and earth pass away, not so much as a yud or a stroke. What's a yud? The smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. What's the stroke? The markings underneath it. He says, not even the yud, man. You can't even take out a yud from the law. Not until everything that must happen has happened. So whoever disobeys the least of these commandments, he's saying you got to obey him, right? That's what he's saying. No? Am I reading what he's saying? It's pretty straightforward. Straightforward. And teaches others. So it's kind of bad if you don't do it, but then if you teach others, he doesn't care if you have a PhD. He doesn't care if you went to the best seminary in Kentucky. He doesn't care. If you teach anybody to do the least, you'll be called least in the kingdom of heaven. What most crazy Gentiles in the Messianic movement don't know is they're still in the kingdom of heaven. They act like, oh, you're going to hell, you worship on Sunday. Oh, you just ate pork, you're going to hell. Nope. You're wrong. And so what do? They're miserable. They just beat up Christians. That's what they do. That's their ministry. My ministry is not to unify, which is what God does. My ministry is to work for Satan and divide. I'm going to tell all these Christians that I used to worship with, they're wrong, and now I'm right. You went into a phone booth and came out as Super Jew? You're not even Jewish. If another Holocaust happens, and it will, let's see how much you stand with the Jews then. Now it's easy, right? Madonna, Kabbalah. But whoever obeys them and so teaches will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever obeys them, great. You know, so many people just want to get saved. I don't care if I'm least. Can you imagine me saying that to my 4 kids, looking at them and go, I just want you to know something. Max, you're the least. I said that to him because he's really the best. And he knows that. No, he's the best in his faith. But he still doesn't understand that there's only one alpha dog in the house sometimes, no matter how big he gets. He knows, though, he does know, he knows me. I'm from the Bronx. I'll use any tactic there is. There's no clean. All is fair in love and war. But you don't want to be, do you want to be known in heaven as the least? Daniel was known as like one of the greatest, right? He was praying and Gabriel came. Satan tried to hold Gabriel back. And God dispensed the angelic host to beat the crap out of Satan. Gabriel's released. He comes to Daniel, and Daniel's amazed, and he goes, don't be amazed. When you pray, we hear instantly. You are very well known up in heaven, Daniel. Maybe that's why some of your prayers aren't being answered. You don't want to be least. No, Rabbi, I don't care. I just want to have my life and get saved and know when I die, I go to heaven. Now you're talking like a church member. No, you should be so in love with God that you want the most of Him. just to let you see what these terms mean, because it's very important. Rabbi, this is so cerebral. Well, go home and watch it again. You just want a quick message and then talk to your friends and get something to eat. Don't you want to grow in your faith? You'll sit and watch Netflix for 5 hours and not flinch, as long as you got a bag of chips. And you won't listen for 40 minutes. Look at the words abolish. Greek, of course, because we're looking in the New Testament. Katauo. How's that for Greek? To destroy, to demolish. Metaphorically, to render worthless. Complete or fulfill, and this has been ruined. The word fulfill has been ruined in the faith. Look at the word fulfill. Pleroo, to fill up or to fully preach. Okay, that's interesting. David Bivin and Roy Blizzard wrote a book, got to get it, Understanding the Difficult Words of Jesus. Understanding the Difficult Words of Jesus. And on page 154, they comment about this, as they should. This is what they say, I'm quoting. When a rabbi felt that a colleague had misinterpreted a passage of Scripture as the rabbi was teaching, if he misinterpreted, he would say, "You're destroying the law," or "You're abolishing the law." That's what they would say. That's what Jews would say in the first century. Everybody knew that. If you're Jewish, you knew that. Because there was rabbis all over the place. Thousands and thousands and thousands. And they had students. Correct interpretation would be, "You're fulfilling the law." Now, do you see this a little bit? If you don't, let me explain real quick. Therefore, Yeshua, a bona fide Jewish rabbi in Israel, talking to an audience of Jewish people in the first century, was basically saying, this is what he was saying in Matthew 5. Okay? I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to give you the GHV, the Greg Hershberg version. You guys are misinterpreting the law. I'm going to correctly interpret it for you. Or, if you don't like that version, I didn't come to render the law worthless or abolish it. I've come to fully preach it. That's the interpretation, because those are what the words say. Now, although there is no, we're almost home, although there is no Jewish consensus on how Jesus is to be regarded, and almost no Jewish scholars believe, there's not a Jewish scholar that believes that Jesus came to start a new religion. Rabbi, you don't believe that, do you? I sure do. I think he came to finish an old one. I think Judaism had no roof. This is what they say, Jewish scholars. If Jesus was to return today, Jewish scholars believe he undoubtedly would feel more at home at a synagogue than a church. Personally, I think he would feel more at home at Beth Yeshua. Now, he would worship on Saturday, so that's why he'd be more at home in a synagogue. He'd be observing the feasts as he did all his life. That's why he'd be more at home. He would eat a certain way, so if they had a no-neg, he didn't have to go, "Are those beans cooked with?" He didn't have to do that. But he'd be like, "Hey guys, how come you don't believe in me?" So this is where he'd feel more at home. A Messianic synagogue. At any rate, most statements attributed to Jesus in the New Testament conform to Jewish teachings. See, nobody has a problem. You know where it goes awry? Paul's teachings. If you read the Gospels, you can't refute this stuff I'm saying. But all of a sudden, Paul wrote, and it's like, we could do whatever we want. Any days we want. Any food we want. That's not what Paul taught. But Paul's hard to understand, according to the Apostle Peter. And he said, those that are unstable and unschooled will mess up his letters just like they do the rest of the Scriptures. Isn't that what Peter said in his letter? Next week, I'm going to get to that, because you can easily use Paul to say, this is nonsense. You're just a Christian, Rabbi. I'm going to show you it's not nonsense. Next week is going to be a little tough. It's not surprising that Jewish scholars see that Jesus conformed to Jewish teachings. Do you know why? Because Jesus practiced strict Pharisaic Judaism. Jesus was a Pharisee? We're supposed to hate Pharisees. Well, he didn't like some Pharisees who were full of it. Just like there's some men and women of God that are full of it. And I'm not talking the Spirit. So he had a problem with a certain group of Pharisees, but to be a Pharisee means to be a separated one. We are called to be Pharisaic. This is shocking, Rabbi. I hate you right now. I hate you. How's this? I hate you so much that I'm going up home right now and I'm decorating my tree early. I hate you. You've ruined my life. Guys, I care what you do, but I don't care what you do because you're going to do whatever you want to do. I'm just preaching the scriptures. That's all, nothing more. I only care about two things in life. Really, two things. People getting saved, and I care about taking care of the poor, the downtrodden, the widow, and the orphan. That's it. That's my ministry, personally. That's all I care about. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. So do whatever you want. I'm just teaching you what the Bible says. And you say, you sound like a know-it-all. I spent 33 years in the book, man. I picked up something. It's my pleasure. I love this. This isn't work to me. This isn't a sacrifice. I love this. I will do anything I can to make sure that my peeps, who I love, are not duped by the enemy. I'll do anything I can to not let him infiltrate your marriage, get to your kids, get to your mind, screw you up. Screw him. I can't stand him. And by the way, I know some of you hear a little language I use. Let me tell you why I do it, and then if you don't like it, you can leave, because I'm going to do it. Let me tell you why. First of all, I don't want you putting me on a pedestal, so I do it on purpose. I don't have to say that. Secondarily, I am a little streety. And tertiary, see, you're smart too. Yes, you could be streety and smart. That the guys from the hood and the people that are lost and the prostitutes and the alcoholics, they gravitate towards me. But the clean as whistles, no. The blue hairs, they want to hear Pastor Dave with his dopey cardigan come out with his little belt with his little sailboats on and go, this is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice in it. And he goes home and he says to his wife, are they gone? My face is killing me, I'm so tired of smiling. They can't relate to that guy. Do you know, I'm going to tell you something. I've been here 20 years in Macon. Macon is Christian Central. I've spoken to tens of thousands of people, and I'm not lying. I really believe somehow, I don't know, this is just in my walk of life, I think the church has turned more people off than turned people on. And the church is dying and they're losing. And it's not, the kids aren't being lost. The kids aren't being lost, hear me, because the guy's not cool. No, that's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for cool. They're looking for truth, and they're looking for somebody who lives out that freaking truth. They want to see authenticity. That's why they're stuck on reality TV. They just want to see it real. And the church is losing people by the week. And the only people that stay are the people that either have their grandfather buried in the cemetery, and basically they're just a step away from being buried. We're losing people. The kingdom is losing people. And these kids that were raised in the church go off to college, and all of a sudden, in the matter of months, they're questioning the existence of God. They're having a homosexual experience. They're getting high as a kite. And they're wondering, where's God? And we wonder, how did that happen? We brought you every week. You brought them to church, but you didn't bring the church to them. Don't depend on the church. The church isn't your answer, and the church isn't your problem. Sin is the problem. Yeshua is the answer. They must be born again. Rabbi, I've been going to church 60 years. Are you born again? That's what I always ask. I've been in church my whole life. Are you born again? Rabbi, I'm 80 years old. Are you born again? Doesn't mean anything. So please forgive me. Really, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not. If you had any idea how much I love you, how much I pray for you, how much I cry for you, you'd probably like me a lot more. But it's not about that. God knows. I'm shooting to be most in the kingdom. It doesn't matter what you think. You're not going to judge me. God is going to. I'm going to sit at the judgment seat of Messiah, and he knows what I do. And that's all that matters. But I think the Christian world sees Yeshua as a former Jew. Like he converted. What did he convert to? He's now a Christian. He invented it. They see him with blue eyes and blonde hair, right? Every church I go to, there's a picture of Da Vinci. Da Vinci was a card-carrying atheist. Why would they have that in there? They're freaking out because some toothpaste company might support abortions, but they're putting an atheist, card-carrying atheist, who is probably a homosexual, who paints these men, and they look like fat women. Did you see the picture? They're leaning on each other like it's some bathhouse in Greenwich Village. And they have it in every church. And then outside on the lawn, they have the 10 Commandments, but let's just move 9 forward. Who gave them the right? Well, now you understand why I asked, do I have to stop being Jewish? But the answer started to become clear, and this is how it became clear when he said, I didn't. I open up the New Testament, right? I open it up. What is it? What do I open it up to? Matthew. First page, right? What chapter? 1. What verse? Look at what I read. This is the genealogy of Yeshua the Messiah. I'm like, the Messiah? The Messiah? No, that's a Jewish term, Mashiach. Not in the New Testament. I wanted to make sure, am I in the New Testament? Am I in the New Testament? I built this up so you can feel what I'm feeling. Otherwise, if I would have started with this, you were like, what are you, an idiot? You don't even know if you're in the New Testament? Do you understand now what it is to be Jewish? Hardcore Jewish. New York Jewish with both parents. Everybody dies in the Holocaust. Your grandpa, everybody's Jewish. Your sisters marry Jewish men. All your nieces and nephews are bar mitzvahed and bat mitzvahed. This is the genealogy of Yeshua the Messiah, the son of David. What? David's like the king. He's like our king. He unified Israel. He was bad to the bone. He wouldn't even touch Saul even when Saul wanted to kill him. He was the man. What's he doing in here? And then, comma, son of Abraham. Get out of here. Who put that in the New Testament? Abraham was the father of Yitzchak. What? The son of promise? Yitzchak was the father of Yaakov. The father of Israel? The 12 tribes? The father of Judah. Judah, the lion who would birth Messiah according to the prophecy in Genesis 49 by Jacob himself. And his brothers. Dude, I don't know what you were reading, but when I read this, and back then I had hair, it blew my hair back. We have a blatant Jewish genealogy. Blatant. Then I go into Luke. I finished Matthew, but I go into Luke 2, when he was just a baby. You got that next slide? On the 8th day. 8th day that's when we do, I still have my circumcision papers signed by my rabbi, signed by the moil. I have it at home. I want to remember the pain they inflicted on me. No anesthesia. They cut off your foreskin, and this is what they do when you're screaming, because I've been to tons of Brits. They take a little wine, they go, try that the next time you have surgery. It was insanely painful. I remember. On the 8th day, why the 8th day? God said so. But what's so special about the 8th day? Your blood clotting factor, your K factor is strongest on the 8th day. How did God know that? Because he made us. Science isn't king, Yeshua is. Science is wrong 75% of the time. Okay? There you go, scientist. On the 8th day, when it was time for his Brit Milah. What? What? The covenant of circumcision? That's like hardcore Jewish. He was given the name. What he's named? I was named on the 8th day. I didn't get my Hebrew name till the 8th day. Getzel. He was given the name Yeshua, which is what the angel had called him before his conception. Before Miriam conceived, the angel said, you're going to have a son. But I can't. I'm a virgin. I know. It's going to happen. How is it going to happen? God's going to come over you. It's going to be like no other conception. You're to name him Yeshua because he's going to save the world. There was always that one person that goes, I like salvation. Then everybody's going like, I probably should like it too, right? I mean, I'm a believer. I'm saved. That's right out of Genesis 17:10. Right out of the Torah. Then the next verse, 2:22. Look at this. This is like bam, bam, bam. Look at 2:22. When the time came for their purification, Tohar? Now slow down, because some of you Gentiles are a little too Jewish for us. It's an affront. I'll explain that in a little bit. I'll explain that in a little bit. When the time came for their purification according to the Torah of Moshe, what? How could it be nailed? They took him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. That's during the Tohah, Leviticus 12, 1 through 2. You present the child to the Lord. You dedicate the child. Dedication. Is dedication biblical? Yes. Look at the next verse. As it is written in the Torah of Adonai, come on. Every firstborn male is to be consecrated to Adonai. What's that? Pinyan haben. Exodus 13, 11 through 12. I'm freaking out. Redemption of the firstborn. This is Jewish hardcore. Then I go back to Matthew. 2nd chapter, 1 through 2. After Yeshua was born in Bethlehem, in the land of Yehuda, during the time when Herod was king, Magi. Who were the Magi? They were astrologers. No, they weren't. What do you think? This is Psychic Friends Network? You think they belong to Dionne Warwick? They were brilliant men, seers. How did they know about this special star? How did they find out? Danny Boy, old Danny Boy. He was the head of the seers in Babylon, Magi from the east, and he told them about these prophecies. And they told their kids, and they told their kids. And one generation said, we've seen his star. What star? The Chochab. It's a messianic star that shone over where the Messiah was born. And they came all the way, and they said, where is the newborn king of the whose? I was like, get out of town. The Jesus who I had nothing to do with, who I was told not to go near, is my king? Could that be? Turn over the page, and I get into Matthew 3, and it says, it was during those days that John the Baptist arrived. I just thought he was a Baptist. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's why my Bible says Yochanan the Immerser. Mikvahs, baptisms. They did mikvahs. They had a mikvah pool outside the southern gate. They were mikvahing hundreds of years before Yeshua. Ritual baths. This didn't start with the Christian community. John's father was a Levitical priest. His mother was from the Aaronic line, the high priest line. John was 100% kosher. Somebody's in here and go, okay, fine. He wasn't a Baptist, but he was Catholic, right? Nope. Not Catholic, not Presbyterian, or not Pentecostal. Matthew 4, we don't have it up here, but remember he gets pulled into the wilderness to be what? Tempted. It's like, you know what? God was like, okay, you're on. I'm going to take the Lion of Judah against the one who's been lying to Judah. In this corner, the snake, the serpent, the deceiver of the brethren, who weighs 120 pounds, dripping wet. And his opponent, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, who's going to roar and take him out. And he humbled himself. He was starving. 40 days, no food. Some of you are starving because you didn't have breakfast. And he brings a fresh loaf of bread. He tells him, just bow down. I'll give you the kingdom. How could he give him the kingdom? Because he's the God of the kingdom. He has the right. He's the God of this kingdom. And boy, Yeshua gave it to him, right? And what does he use? What does he use when Satan says, on God? Deuteronomy, 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 thrice. Granted, there was no New Testament written, but he could have said something else than 3 Torah commands. Luke 4, check this out. We're going to be here. Luke 4, 15 through 16. I know you're getting tired. You know how I feel. This is a message that I feel God gave me. If you need to leave, it doesn't affect me. My job is to give this message. It doesn't affect me. You think I can't walk out on you. You'll take it personally. Heck no. You can all walk out. I'm going to finish the message. Yeshua returns to the Galil. When is this? He's been tempted. He defeated Satan. He showed Satan, can't touch this. And then he went to the Galilee. Why? It's where he lived. But he went in the power. Some of you need the power of the Holy Spirit. And reports about him spread throughout the countryside. He was starting to get renown. He taught in all their synagogues. Look, Jews back then wouldn't even let a Gentile in the synagogue, no less give him the scrolls. Do you understand this? He was 100% kosher rabbi, highly respected. He taught in their synagogues all over the circuit of the Galilee, and everyone respected him. Everyone respected him. Now, when he went to Nazareth, where was Nazareth? It was his home, where he was brought up on Shabbat. Go figure. He's going to synagogue on Shabbat. That's weird. And it says as usual, meaning that's first century. Duh. What do you think he's going to go? He was a highly regarded rabbi who worshiped. In fact, in the Gospels, he's called rabbi 50 times. 50. Then we get to his sermon, his one and only sermon. You know what he's doing in his sermon for all intent and purposes? He's teaching Torah. Rabbi, how do you know? Because his subjects are murder, adultery, marriage, divorce, vows, lying, love, giving, prayer, and fasting. Straight up Torah. Truth be told, in the first century, they called him HaTorah. The problem is, with some of the Hebrew roots people, he's a lot more than the Torah. The Torah can't bleed. He invented the Torah. So I have a problem when people call him HaTorah. Give me a break. He's Ha, King of Kings, and Ha, Lord of Lords. He's Ha, deity. So Ha. And next to last but not least, Matthew 22. When the crowds heard how he taught, they were astounded. But when the Perushim, the Pharisees, learned that he had silenced the Tzedukim, sometimes, guys, it's best to make believe your mouth is like a cell phone in a movie theater and just silence it. He silenced them. He's like, the Sadducees came to him and he's like, shh, bye. So they got together, and one of them was, if you look in your Bibles, as opposed to the complete Jewish, it says, he was a lawyer. So why do you think they sent him? Yeshua, have you been hurt in an accident? Call 1-800. First of all, let me just give you a bit of advice. If you've been hurt in an accident, you probably want to call 911. It's disgusting what's going on today. I counted like 70 lawyer signs between here and Atlanta. Seriously? So they sent a Torah expert, a lawyer, but an expert in the law. And he asked the question because he's inquisitive? No. Just wants to find him on something. And what's the question he asked? A brilliant question. Rabbi, which of the commandments are most important? What's he going to say if he says, thou shalt not commit adultery? Are you saying it's not important to love the Lord? They were going to catch him. No matter what he said, they were going to nail him. Right? Yes, I have my shirt out of my pants. I know that's what you were thinking. Yes, do you have a problem with that, ma'am? You can be the first to go. Why? I don't know why. I don't know why I did it, okay? But it has nothing to do with the message. You know why? Because I'm a Jew, and Jews take their shirt out of their pants when they're preaching. Can't believe you don't know that. So they ask him the question, what's the most important commandment? And then the next question, which we don't have time for, is why, Yeshua, why is your shirt out of your pants? So the Pharisees heard that the Pharisees hated the Sadducees, and the Sadducees hated the Pharisees. They had different philosophy. But when it came to hating Yeshua, they were unified. Ready? Newsflash. Demons don't fight with each other. They unify against Messiah, and they unify against you. Christians fight against each other. There won't be none of that here. I'll just ask you to sit in the corner. No, you will not fight with one of your brothers and sisters here. You will not try to one-up them. You will not try to put them down. You will not be discouraging. You will love them, and if you don't want to love them, this is not your place. Life is hard. Death is harder. People are going through a lot of stuff. Don't be such a big shot, because God has something called severe mercy, and when you put your brothers down, something's going to hit you hard. And you're going to see, you're just like them. You can freak out too. Cut the crap. You know better than anybody here. You're just a bunch of sinners, including me, saved by grace. The only difference between you and me is that you're a sinner saved by grace. I'm a filthy sinner saved by grace. That's the way I see myself. So they came to him for an interview, and they asked him one single question, and his answer, he told them, you are to love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. This is the greatest and most important commandment, and it is. But he says, there's another one that's similar. What's he saying? He's saying that all of the Torah and all of the prophets hang on loving God and loving people. He was saying you ought to love God more than yourself, and you ought to love everyone else just like you love yourself. This is Judaism's creed. If Judaism had a catechism, it would be the Shema and the V'ahavta. Only he could sum up Judaism. Only he could sum up the Torah in 2 commands. Nobody could have pulled that off. You would have thought, now, I think the most important commandment is not to eat pork. Because Lord knows that's going to get me a higher place in the kingdom. It's going to get you into the kingdom sooner, that's all. Everybody knows that. You're just going to die quicker. You're going to have more cholesterol, more fat. You're just going to drop dead. And if you want to see Yeshua sooner, eat a lot of pork. So what do we have here in closing? We have Yeshua as a Torah observant, highly nationalistic Jewish rabbi. He worshipped on Shabbat and observed all the Levitical holidays. He ate kosher and he lived an exclusive Jewish lifestyle. I am not telling you this, guys, to tell you what days to worship or what to eat or not to eat. I don't care. I don't care. What I am saying is that there is an obvious disconnect between Judaism and Christianity. And I believe the body of Messiah has become unhitched. The Bible says there is one body and one spirit. There is one Lord and one faith. There is one baptism and one God, and he is the Father of all. Yeshua prayed a lot, but we don't have his prayers written down. We have 2 prayers. He's prayed 3 times in the Bible. 3 times. Once in John 11, thanking God that he's heard his voice when he's ready to raise Lazarus, so that the people would know who he was. Another time in Matthew 11, thanking God that he spoke in parables. Just 2 sentences of thanks. You're not going to glean much from it. All you're going to glean is, we should thank God, yes. But then right before he's arrested and murdered, he speaks a 26-sentence prayer. Can you imagine? This is his last words, basically, except for a few statements on the cross. And I just want to highlight 2 verses and we're out. Towards the end of this prayer in John 17, this is what he says. I pray not only for these. Who are these? Who are these? The disciples. Listen to this. This is beautiful. This is going to end on a really beautiful note. If I've turned you off, turn on just right here. But I pray also for those who will trust in me. Who's that? Wow, that's too much for me. That's too much for me. That's too much. And even me, because I wasn't grafted in, but I had to be reinstated. I was broken off. But for those who will trust in me because of their word, that they may all be one. Their word, he's talking about us sharing the gospel, the treasure in earthen vessels. Just as you, Father, are united with me and I with you, we're one. John 10:30, we are one. I pray, this is his prayer. Don't you want to answer his prayer? I pray that they may be united with us so that the world may believe. Don't you see the body of Christ, the body of Messiah, the Hebrew roots people, all the splinter messianic congregations that are looped? They're playing into Satan's hands. They're being divisive, and they're working under a spirit of anger and accusation. Who are you to put people on the witness stand. Who are you? You are called to be a witness, not a lawyer or a judge. Now hear me. The high priest, the great high priest Yeshua, extends his prayer beyond the disciples here. He prayed for generations unborn. In fact, every believer reading this verse right now can say that Yeshua prayed for me over 1900 years ago. The prayer was for unity among believers with the salvation of sinners in view. That's all he cared about. That's all he cared about. He said, I've come to seek and save the lost. That's all he cared about. The unity that Messiah prayed for was not a matter of external church union. It doesn't matter how you baptize. It doesn't matter what you wear slick. He doesn't care. There'll never be external church union. It can't happen. So what was he looking for, Rabbi? It was unity based on common moral likeness. Be the believer. Be the believer. Character. Character. He was praying that believers might be one in exhibiting the character of God and of Messiah. This is what would cause the world to believe. This is the unity that makes people in the world go, these Christians are legit. Rabbi, that's too much for me to bear. Then get out of the game. If you don't want to be an ambassador, get out of the game. If you don't think it's worth it, if you don't think Yeshua's blood and sacrifice is worth it, then I beg to differ. I say, today, here and now, let's come back, and I'm prophesying to the whole body of Messiah. Let's come back to Jew and Gentile, one in Messiah, because God is preparing to send Yeshua, the bridegroom, back, and he's only going to marry one bride. Amen? Let's stand together. Somebody on the way home is going to go, I don't understand. What's a Venn diagram? Missing the forest for the trees. I think you get the message, right? Amen. And this is probably why you're here. Maybe you're here for a short time and you're not even sure why you're here. That's why. That's why, because before Yeshua comes back, this is going to be a microcosm, because everybody's going to be this. He can't come back for a Pentecostal bride or a Methodist bride or a black bride or a white bride or an Asian bride or a Chinese bride. No, cut the crap, okay? Cut the crap. You want to talk about persecution? I'll sit down with you any day of the week, and let's go over Jewish persecution. You don't see me crying the blues, do you? No, I'm not going to walk up to a German person and say it was your fault. They could be the grandson of Hitler. They didn't do it. They didn't pull the lever on the gas chamber. Come on, you're saved. Grow up and be thankful and praise God that you're not going to hell. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace in the name of the Prince of Peace, Yeshua. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yo'er Adonai panav elecha v'hunecha. Yisar Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. I love you very much. Shabbat shalom. Have a great day. Yeah, I'm going to hold on to this then. Yeah.